Sudan, one of Africa's most resource-rich nations, has been caught in a power struggle for decades. But today, the battle isn't just about politics, it's about wealth, gold, and control. In 2011, Sudan split into two countries, and while much of the world focused on South Sudan's independence, the real war was still brewing in the north. A war not just between politicians, but one that has been tearing the people of Sudan apart, while benefiting a select few at the top. When Sudan's longtime dictator Omar al-Bashir was removed in 2019, many hoped for peace. But instead, his removal created a vacuum of power. Two men emerged to take control: Sudan's President Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former ally, now Vice President Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti. At first they were partners in power. In 2020, a transitional government was formed, and for a brief moment there was peace. But peace in Sudan is temporary when power and wealth are at stake. Fast forward to today, these same two men who once worked together are now at war with each other. Sudan is the third largest producer of gold in Africa, a fact that has both enriched and plagued the nation. The vast reserves of gold have the potential to transform Sudan into a prosperous country, but they have also been a source of immense conflict and suffering. The gold mines, scattered across the country, are particularly concentrated in the region of Darfur. Much of Sudan's gold comes from Darfur, a region that has been synonymous with conflict and tragedy. The gold mining operations here are extensive, involving thousands of miners who work under harsh conditions. These miners, often driven by poverty, risk their lives daily in the hopes of striking it rich. The very same Darfur that has suffered war and genocide for decades. The scars of past conflicts are still visible, with war-torn areas and refugee camps serving as grim reminders of the region's turbulent history. The genocide that took place here left deep wounds that have yet to heal, and the presence of gold has only added another layer of complexity to the region's struggles. Hemedti, Sudan's vice president, controls Sudan's most powerful paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and with it, he controls much of Sudan's gold trade. Hemedti's rise to power has been meteoric, and his control over the gold trade has solidified his position as one of the most influential figures in Sudan. The RSF, originally formed to combat insurgencies, has now become a key player in the country's gold industry. But now, Hemedti is pushing to sell Sudan's gold through legitimate channels, making it a recognized export. This move is seen as an attempt to gain international legitimacy and attract foreign investment. By selling gold through official channels, Hemedti hopes to boost Sudan's economy and improve its standing on the global stage. This would mean more international oversight, more regulation, and possibly less personal profit for Sudan's ruling elite. The introduction of international regulations could curb the rampant corruption that has plagued Sudan's gold industry for years. However, it also threatens the lucrative black market that many of the country's elites have benefited from. President Burhan opposes this, allegedly because it cuts him out of the usual backdoor profits. Burhan, who has his own network of loyalists and business interests, sees Hemedti's move as a direct threat to his power and financial interests. The tension between these two leaders has escalated, leading to a power struggle that has further destabilized the country. And so, Sudan is split, half the people supporting Hemedti, half supporting Burhan. The division is not just political but also social, with communities and families torn apart by their allegiances. Protests and rallies have become a common sight, with supporters of both leaders taking to the streets to voice their opinions. But while these two men fight for gold, who suffers? The people. The ordinary citizens of Sudan bear the brunt of this power struggle. As the leaders vie for control over the gold trade, the country's economy remains in shambles, and the humanitarian crisis deepens. Communities are left to fend for themselves, with limited access to basic necessities and services. The children in particular are the most vulnerable, growing up in a world marked by conflict and uncertainty. Humanitarian efforts continue, but the road to peace and stability seems long and arduous. Here's the hypocrisy. Darfur is part of North Sudan. It has always been. This region, rich in culture and history, has been an integral part of the country for centuries. Yet despite its significance, Darfur has been marginalized and neglected by the central government. The people of Darfur have contributed immensely to the nation's identity, but their contributions are often overlooked or ignored. This neglect is not just a recent phenomenon, it has been a persistent issue that has plagued the region for decades. The central government in Khartoum has consistently failed to recognize the potential and importance of Darfur, treating it as a peripheral region rather than an essential part of the nation. Yet the people of Darfur are treated like outsiders in their own country. They face discrimination and are often denied basic rights and services that are readily available in other parts of North Sudan. This systemic neglect has led to widespread poverty and underdevelopment in the region. Families struggle to make ends meet and children are deprived of quality education and healthcare. The lack of infrastructure and investment in Darfur has left its people in a perpetual state of hardship. Despite their resilience and determination, the people of Darfur continue to face insurmountable challenges due to the government's indifference. Why? Let's make this clear. Every past Sudanese leader, every army general, has had a role in perpetuating this cycle of neglect and marginalization. These leaders, who hail from various parts of North Sudan, have consistently prioritized their own interests over the well-being of the people of Darfur. They have exploited the region's resources while offering little in return. The political and military elite have maintained their power by keeping Darfur underdeveloped and dependent. This deliberate strategy has ensured that the region remains weak and unable to challenge the central authority. Every warlord, all came from North Sudan, including leaders from Darfur. These leaders, despite being from the region, have often aligned themselves with the central government, furthering their own agendas at the expense of their people. They have played a significant role in the conflicts and violence that have plagued Darfur, contributing to the suffering and displacement of countless families. The alliances between local leaders and the central government have only deepened the divide between Darfur and the rest of North Sudan. This betrayal by their own leaders has left the people of Darfur feeling abandoned and hopeless. The people of Darfur fight in Sudan's wars. They have been on the front lines defending the nation and sacrificing their lives for a country that has consistently failed them. Despite their loyalty and bravery, they are often treated as second-class citizens. The contributions of Darfuri soldiers are rarely acknowledged, and their sacrifices go unrecognized. This disregard for their service is a stark reminder of the systemic discrimination that permeates every aspect of life in Darfur. The people of Darfur continue to serve their country with honor, even as they are denied the respect and recognition they deserve. Their gold funds Sudan's economy. Darfur is rich in natural resources, particularly gold, which has been a significant source of revenue for the country. The gold mines of Darfur have contributed billions to the national economy, yet the wealth generated from these resources rarely benefits the people of the region. Instead, it is siphoned off by corrupt officials and used to fund the lavish lifestyles of the elite. The workers in the gold mines toil under harsh conditions, receiving meager wages while the fruits of their labor are enjoyed by those in power. This exploitation of Darfur's resources is a glaring example of the government's hypocrisy and greed. Yet Darfur remains one of the most underdeveloped regions in Sudan. The lack of investment in infrastructure, education, and healthcare has left the region in a state of perpetual poverty. Roads are in disrepair, schools are underfunded, and hospitals lack basic supplies and equipment. The people of Darfur are forced to live in conditions that are unimaginable in other parts of North Sudan. This stark contrast between the wealth generated from the region's resources and the poverty experienced by its people is a testament to the government's neglect and mismanagement. The underdevelopment of Darfur is not due to a lack of potential but rather a deliberate policy of marginalization. Why is Darfur treated as separate when it is part of Sudan? This question has plagued the people of Darfur for generations. Despite being an integral part of the country, Darfur is often treated as an afterthought by the central government. The stark contrast between the developed areas of Khartoum and the neglected regions of Darfur is a glaring example of this disparity. The government's policies have created a divide that has left Darfur isolated and underdeveloped. This treatment of Darfur as a separate entity is not only unjust, but also counterproductive to the nation's overall development. The potential of Darfur remains untapped, and its people continue to suffer as a result. Because the Sudanese government does not serve its people, it serves itself. The actions of the government are driven by self-interest and a desire to maintain power at all costs. The needs and aspirations of the people of Darfur are secondary to the ambitions of the political elite. This self-serving attitude has led to widespread corruption and mismanagement, further exacerbating the problems faced by the region. The government's failure to address the issues in Darfur is not due to a lack of resources or capability, but rather a lack of will. The people of Darfur are left to fend for themselves, with little hope of support from those in power. If Darfur is truly part of North Sudan, then it deserves to be treated as such. The people of Darfur have the same rights and entitlements as any other citizen of North Sudan. They deserve access to quality education, healthcare, and infrastructure. They deserve to live in a region that is developed and prosperous. The government's failure to provide these basic necessities is a violation of their rights and a betrayal of their trust. The unity of North Sudan is only meaningful if it includes all its regions and people. Darfur's inclusion in the nation must be reflected in its treatment and development. Why is it not given the same opportunities, the same development as the rest of the country? The disparity between Darfur and other regions of North Sudan is a result of deliberate policies of neglect and marginalization. The government has consistently prioritized the development of certain areas while ignoring others. This unequal distribution of resources and opportunities has created a divide that is detrimental to the nation's unity and progress. The people of Darfur are just as capable and deserving of development as those in Khartoum or any other part of North Sudan. The government's failure to recognize and address this is a grave injustice. The same security as the rest of the country? The lack of security in Darfur is a major concern for its residents. The region has been plagued by violence and conflict for years, with little intervention from the central government. While other parts of North Sudan enjoy relative peace and stability, Darfur remains a hotspot for unrest. The government's failure to provide adequate security has left the people of Darfur vulnerable to attacks and violence. This lack of protection is yet another example of the government's neglect and indifference towards the region. The people of Darfur deserve to live in a safe and secure environment, free from fear and violence. The answer is simple. The government does not want Darfur to rise. The central government fears that a developed and empowered Darfur would challenge its authority and disrupt the status quo. By keeping the region underdeveloped and marginalized, the government ensures that it remains in control. This deliberate policy of oppression has stifled the potential of Darfur and kept its people in a state of perpetual struggle. The government's actions are driven by a desire to maintain power rather than to serve the interests of its people. The people of Darfur continue to fight for their rights and dignity, despite the government's efforts to suppress them. If it did, it would no longer have control over its people. The central government's grip on power is maintained through the systematic oppression and marginalization of regions like Darfur. By keeping these regions underdeveloped and dependent, the government ensures that it remains in control. The people of Darfur are denied the opportunities and resources they need to thrive, keeping them in a state of perpetual struggle. This control is not just about maintaining power, but also about suppressing any potential challenges to the government's authority. The people of Darfur continue to resist and fight for their rights, despite the government's efforts to keep them oppressed. This war isn't just Sudan versus Sudan. Foreign interests are watching and interfering. South Sudan has been accused of supporting Darfur's rebels. Meanwhile, reports claim Palestinian groups are assisting North Sudan's government and its followers in attacking Darfur. But why? Because gold and power go beyond borders. The world is playing chess, and Sudan is just a board. The people of Sudan, the people of Darfur are the pawns. The truth is simple. Sudanese people have a choice. They have the power to shape their destiny, to decide the future of their nation. This choice is not just about who leads them, but about the very principles that guide their society. It's about choosing peace over violence, unity over division, and love over hatred. The power lies within each individual, within each family, within each community. It's a collective strength that can bring about monumental change. No president or vice president owns their lives. These leaders are elected to serve, not to rule with an iron fist. They are meant to be the voice of the people, not their oppressors. The true essence of leadership is service, humility, and dedication to the well-being of the citizens. When leaders forget this, it is the duty of the people to remind them. It is the duty of the people to hold them accountable, to ensure that they do not stray from their path of service. No leader should tell them to kill their own people for political gain. The role of a leader is to protect, to nurture, and to guide. When leaders incite violence, they betray the very essence of their role. They turn protectors into perpetrators, guardians into aggressors. This cycle of violence only leads to more suffering, more pain, and more loss. It tears apart the very fabric of society, leaving scars that take generations to heal. If a leader is willing to encourage you to kill your own people, what stops them from killing you when you are no longer useful to them? This is a question every soldier, every citizen must ask themselves. Blind loyalty to a corrupt leader can lead to one's own downfall. History is replete with examples of leaders who have turned against their own supporters once they have outlived their usefulness. The true loyalty should be to the nation, to the people, and to the principles of justice and peace. If everyone refuses to fight, there will be no war. Imagine a world where the call to arms is met with silence, where the drums of war are drowned out by the voices of peace. This is not a utopian dream. It is a possibility. When people stand united in their refusal to engage in violence, they send a powerful message. They show that their strength lies not in their weapons, but in their unity, their resolve, and their commitment to peace. If no one picks up a weapon, the government will have to listen. The power of nonviolent resistance has been proven time and again throughout history. From Gandhi's India to Martin Luther King Jr.'s America, peaceful protests have brought about significant change. When the people refuse to be pawns in the games of power-hungry leaders, they reclaim their agency. They force the government to address their grievances, to listen to their demands, and to work towards a just and equitable society. Leaders who truly want progress do not kill their own citizens. They build their country, they develop their lands, they protect their people. True leadership is about creating opportunities, fostering growth, and ensuring the well-being of all citizens. It is about building schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. It is about creating jobs, ensuring security, and promoting harmony. Leaders who understand this work tirelessly to uplift their nation, to bring about positive change, and to create a legacy of peace and prosperity. So ask yourself, who in this war is truly fighting for Sudan, and who is just fighting for their own wealth? This is the ultimate question. It is a question of motives, of intentions, and of true allegiance. Are the leaders fighting for the betterment of the nation, or are they driven by greed and a thirst for power? Are they working to uplift the people, or are they exploiting them for personal gain? The answers to these questions will reveal the true nature of the conflict, and will guide the people in their quest for peace and justice. Darfur has gold, resources, and potential. With the right management, Darfur could be just as developed as any other major city in Sudan, maybe even better. Imagine Darfur rebuilt, its economy booming, its people thriving. But that cannot happen if the very people who should protect it are the ones destroying it. So Sudanese people must ask themselves, what future do you want? A future where a few men get rich off gold while the rest suffer? Or a future where Sudan builds itself up as a united, thriving nation? Because in the end, gold cannot feed you, war cannot save you, and a leader who tells you to kill your own people is not a leader at all. Think for yourself. Choose peace. Sudan's future is in its people's hands.